Morning and welcome back. We have continued our work session. I just want to thank each of you in attendance and thank you gentlemen for coming down from Highlands, being here tonight. Commissioners, now it's just the time to mix the ingredients of the cake per se and put this budget together. I've got a little list here of items that we need to discuss. Does anybody have anything they want to go ahead and open up with? Well, out of respect for Highlands and their time, let's just start off with Highlands Fire Department. And let's just
put it out there.
put it out there.
Well, Chairman, I'll start this, and I'm gonna turn back the clock. I don't want to bore you too much in the past, but when I joined the fire department in 1989, it was all volunteers, and we had people standing in line waiting for applications to join the fire department. And in my time at the fire department, all the decisions were made by the firemen and the fire department as a whole. And since that time, they are more controlled now by the town board and the town of Highlands, which we control the budget. The ask was for a 2-cent increase, and that was to provide 3 more staff. And I don't disagree that the non-response of the volunteers are in dire straits in what I'm hearing and what I know. And so the staff is definitely something is needed, and how that looks. I really don't. I don't know. I've tried to dive into this ask for 3 new positions, and over the weekend I was asking questions about. Before we had a paid administrator that came in 4 or 5 days a week, 4 hours a day, and controlled all the books and all the ins and outs of the operation of the fire department. And now, since the town has taken over the finances, the checkbook and everything, I remember that very well when that came about, and how the uproar in the fire department was the town controlling the checkbook. But, and we also know that there's not a real problem with response during the day, because Highlands Fire Department has a lot of people coming up the mountain that are on other fire departments that work for the town that are participating if needed. And it was clarified at the last meeting that the real problem is at night. So I questioned, and I served with the chief and assistant chief on the fire department, and so I questioned, if you look at the town's book, the chief and assistant chief are hired administrators that work full-time during the day, while we have 2 full-time paid firefighters working during the day. So that puts 4 staff on the fire department during the week, during the day. And the real problem is the night calls. And the other real problem is, and I may be wrong by saying this, and the chief's here and clarify that, but the majority of the calls are on the weekends. Not saying that a house don't catch on fire any time of the day, night, week, or whatever. But I question why, number one, is why we have 2 administrators full-time during the day when we need firefighters. So I look at it as if we took the two paid staff, oh, and I'll back up, I did question why that the administrators did not serve different shifts, and I was told that the administrators are not shift workers, they are 40-hour-week employees that work during the day, which I'm not real sure I understand the importance of having two full-time paid administrators working the same shift when it's all about firefighting and serving the people of the community in emergency situations. And so through that process, it seems to me like we could take the two administrators. The state recognizes the administrators as firefighters. The town's position is administrators. So they were elected by the people at the fire department as chief and assistant chief. The town of Highlands appointed the chief and assistant chief to full-time administrators, chief and assistant chief, and the members of the fire department don't have any say whatsoever in electing their chief and assistant chief now. So through that process, clarification would like to, is why don't we take the administrators or the chief and assistant chief, add one person to their shift, that gives them three, take the other person off of there and put them on another shift, and then add the third firefighter. I mean, by all means, when 911's called, we need a response from the fire department. But it seems like that we're adding three positions when two of those are already firefighters that are there during the day that could handle this. I just, and honestly, the fire apparatus that's at Highlands Fire Department, there are hundreds, maybe thousands of fire departments out there would give their IT to have some of that equipment. We talk about 20 years of service. Well, really, that's a recommendation from the Department of Insurance and Safety for a full paid fire department that runs, these engines got 15, 20,000 hours on them. And I know of some of the trucks that we sold over the years that these stations that bought those are still using these. And we sold them for pennies on the dollar. And then the last thing that I will say is, I mentioned before about the lawsuit with the price fixing for companies that manufacture these fire engines. I don't know when that will be settled, but it sure seems like when that happens that this fire apparatus is going to be reduced in price. That's just, I have no proof of that, but there's a reason why that it's in court. And so, but I would love to have answers by the town manager or the fire chief as to why we can't regroup here. And one last thing that I will tell you, it's not, I was elected by the people not to run the fire department or any portion of county government. It's my job to make sure that every dollar that we extract from the taxpayers of this county is spent in the benefit of the people paying the bills. So that's why I have to ask these questions to get transparency, to be in the know as is there another way without a tax increase. And their proposal is 2 cents. And I just watched the town board meeting, and I wasn't elected to run the town of Highlands, but it's proposed to increase property taxes in Highlands 3 cents, 2 cent fire tax increase. Our people in Highlands can't afford this. My phone is ringing nonstop about this. And they're also proposing to increase enterprise funds. And our local people can't afford this. So it's our job with the fire department and the town to try to come to a solution to give them what is truly needed. And in my opinion, they need 1 or 3 staff members. They just had pump tests on all the apparatus. None of them failed. And just because it's a 2004 model, that truck is still in, I haven't ran them a long time, so to know that. But I think that's what I'm hearing from some of the volunteer firemen, is their voice doesn't matter in the discussions. And they're struggling to get response to these calls for the volunteers that are active. And one last thing, and then I'm going to close with this. Said it at the last meeting when I joined the fire department. If you missed, I believe it was 3 calls in a row, you were booted from the fire department. Also, if you were not participating in this, you were booted. And so my opinion is that if you're not going to serve your community and you're just going to show up to meetings and get your credit hours and not participate in the actual purpose of you being there, there's no purpose of you being there. And I would say that, and I get it, you have to have 19 members on the department to be recognized by the state. I get it, but it's not helping us. And if we have to keep the volunteers that are participating on there and boot everybody and then pay for the staff to get our numbers there, then that's what we need to do.
Any more thoughts?
I'll give you my thoughts.
John supplied a lot of information right there. Appreciate your work.
Well, I appreciate the firemen. I mean, I lived this life for almost 22 years. And it's hard to come in and say no to your brotherhood. But yet at the same time, somebody's got to make these hard decisions and try to get control. I mean, when I was on the fire department, we ran the fire department on honorary memberships and donations. Then we went to the tax base. We had $385,000 annual budget. If we needed a new fire engine, all we had to do was put it in the paper that we needed a new fire engine, and we could do a campaign to make donations to buy a new fire truck. And I would almost guarantee you, if we put the effort forth to do that same thing in today, I would give it 4 to 6 months and we would have enough donations to pay for this new fire truck. But it's easier now to just raise taxes and ask for a tax increase and tax the people where the people feel like they're not part of the fire department in the community anymore. If we can raise $1 million just like that for a playground in Highlands, I'm almost bet you that we could raise $500,000 or $600,000 for a fire truck, and then the people that are contributing to that fire truck, you're getting the money and you're not impacting the folks that can afford to pay anymore, and you're getting what you're looking for and not impacting your citizenry. And now we're at a $1.9 million annual budget, and we need another $600,000-$700,000. Where does it end? So.
I mean, I think it's probably a question for the folks sitting here as far as the justification of the people. I kind of understand what John's saying and somewhat agree with that have 2 administrators. I mean, I think at the very least, the fire service, I mean, it's a service to the people. So I would agree with Commissioner Sherrill on that as far as 3 or 1. I don't know what the makeup of that looks like. I don't know what the town, I don't know how that works as far as, do you need 2 administrators? Do you need them both on the same shift? Do they fight fire? I think those are the questions that we really need answered.
Gentlemen, would you, yeah, please.
Mr. Chairman, Board, thank you for having us today. I wanted to clarify a few things. I sent a memo out on Friday. I hope all of you got that memo. Did everybody get it on Friday? So it was to bring a little clarity to the request that was proposed. So this is a 3-pronged request, basically. And if you saw the memo, first off, we came here several years ago and asked for an increase to build a new main station, which was needed. The board gave that 2-cent increase. The taxes were collected for a couple of years before, the building was completed in order to service the debt service on that. The first payment was like 2 years in. So we built some fund balance with that money coming in until the building was complete and we could make a loan payment. We tried to make a balloon payment toward the loan, and then that was basically restricted within the loan documents. We couldn't make a balloon payment. So the town board decided that the reason for building the new building was to hire full-time firemen, because it had come to that. So we have the barracks up top to house them. So the board said, we've got this fund balance. We want to go ahead and hire 6 full-time firemen. They did that. We've paid for those firemen with the fund balance for the last 3 years. This upcoming budget will be the 4th year. So if you look at the memo that I gave you, you see the fund balance started, and then each year it's declined. And that's the reason for the declining of the fund balance. So the first prong to this request of 2 cents is a 1 cent increase to basically cover the 6 firemen that are already on shift right now. That's 1 cent to cover them, to balance operations. A 1/2 cent is for the 3rd fireman that would be proposed that you guys have been talking about. The other 1/2 cent is for a new truck. Now, that 1/2 cent won't pay for a whole truck. It'll pay for a 1/2 a truck. So we were going to finance that. I'd bring $300,000 in. We're thinking around $600,000 for a new truck. So it'd take 2 years to pay for that new truck with a 1/2 cent is what we were looking at. So that adds up to the 2 cents. So it's critical to understand that 1 cent is needed now to balance the operations that we have now after we hired those 6 full-time firemen. And those 6 full-time firemen are very critical, and we've realized that from the day we hired them. The amount of calls we get in Highlands is increased. And like Chief said at the last meeting, is we're on an island. We cover 69 square miles. We protect almost half of the valuation of this county in the Highlands Fire District. So I think it's critical that we continue to look at the response, the quick response to any calls that we have in Highlands. And that was the reason for the 3rd position, is to get 2 people out, have 1 people cover the station. Now, Commissioner Sherrill says, we've got a handful of volunteers that are dedicated, that are very dedicated. And that's a handful. And that's all you got. And they're getting older. And when that handful ages out, I don't know what we have. So it's going to fall back on these full-time paid firemen to cover and to protect the 69 square miles in the Highlands Fire District. It's critical to this county. That's the first promise. The second subject that you brought up was The two folks that are administrative, well, number one, they're looked at administrative, a chief and an assistant chief, but they're also firemen. They respond to the calls. They are firemen. They are listed on the roster for the state as the required 19 firemen we need. They were hired actually, and John, you probably know more about this than I do, they were hired actually in 13 before the town board took over in 14 as the chief and assistant chief. The fire department board appointed them as that. And then in 14, a year later, the town board took over. So they have been, firemen that have been on call or, on staff full-time during the daytime since 2014. I don't, I listened to that and how we would move one around to cover a shift. I don't know how you would do that. You definitely need at least one more. If there was some way to move those two around, you'd need at least one more to cover. Night times, weekend, everything. I don't know. I guess we just have to sit down and go over how that would work. And I'm open. I'm open. I hope I speak for the town board. I mean, I'm here representing the town. But I'm open to seeing, how that could be constructed in order to serve, that third fireman per shift. The truck. And I understand that everybody, all departments I'm sure come in every year asking for trucks. And I've really thought about this, and I've talked to Chief about this, is that you don't want to just go out and buy a new truck, every time you turn around. But the deal is we have an 04 and an 06. You're absolutely right. We just had our ISO rating. And we maintained a 4, which we were able to lower from, I think, a 5 to a 4 just a few years ago, which saved the property owners in the Highlands Fire District hundreds of dollars on their insurance. And we were proud of that. I was hoping we'd get down to a 3 this time. We were close. Basically, what they told us is with a third person, they feel like we're within a 3 the next time it comes around. That was another reason for hiring the third fireman for shift. We can drop to a 3, that's going to save the property owners in that Highlands Fire District hundreds more dollars on their insurance. The thing about it is a pump test was conducted a couple of weeks ago, and those pumps did pass. But you have to have a truck to operate correctly to get that pump to the location in order to use that pump. So the first truck out is a truck we've been using for a number of years. There was issues with that truck. We just had it worked on. Spent $10,000 on it, working through some stuff. Over the weekend, when that truck had to go out several times this weekend, it had to be put in reverse in order to unlock the brakes to be able to go forward. So now it's going to have to go back to the shop. And that's the first truck out. That's the first truck out. So when you look at those things, I don't know how many thousands of dollars are going to have to be spent on that truck. But at some point, those trucks have to be replaced, and you don't just willy-nilly replace a truck. Like you guys have, and all your departments, you have a capital improvement plan. And that is looked at each year to see where these vehicles are. If it's a vehicle that's still operating, very well, you might want to skip a year. If it's a vehicle that's up on that CIP and it's giving you some trouble, it's time to move on. It's time to replace it. And that's my concern with this first truck out, is that there's issues with it. And it's needing to be replaced. And one can tell you, if we ordered a truck right now, I know an ambulance, I think a fire truck's about the same. You're talking a minimum of 2, possibly 3 years before you even get that truck. Now, we have discovered a few different trucks out there that are on the market where you could just purchase them. They're base trucks. You might be able to pick one of those up, for $500,000 and put the stuff on it you need, but that's not a guarantee. So if you ordered one today, you're looking at minimum 2, if not 3 years before you get it. So that truck we're having trouble with, we're still going to have to repair in order to, to get us through until we got a new vehicle. So that's what I wanted to clarify is it's kind of a 3-pronged request. Number one, we need a cent to basically balance operations we have right now with the 6 full-time firemen that we hired, and paid with fund balance over the past 3 years. That's number one. Number two is the half for the third fireman, which again, we can look at, kind of move that around, see what can happen there. And then we need half cent for half a truck, basically. And that's the request.
But what happens when that half truck is paid for with that half cent? I mean,
Well-
people never get that back, so that money's
No.
gonna go and, I mean, we're just growing and growing and growing.
So what we were looking at, so we've got a '04 and a '06. So what we thought is basically with the request would be to purchase that truck over a 2-year period, and then turn around and have the ability to purchase another truck, order another truck and to purchase it over, the next 2 years to keep them in rotation. That way we don't get compression and have to buy 2 trucks at one time. That's one thing we don't want to do. But that was the reason for some of the
That's kind of why
funding.
we're in this spot. If you remember when we bought 50 and 51, we bought 51 first, the top mount. And then 2 years later, bought 50. Pretty much identical trucks, just top mount and side mount. 50 is a little bit shorter. That's the reason we run out of it every day. And I feel like that's why we're having issues out of it. Because it's run every day, multiple times a day. They go to the grocery store, they take it, they go to the hospital, they take it, it's, because they want to be prepared, and I want them to be prepared. If they're out at the grocery store and we get a structure fire, they need to be prepared to leave right then. So they kind of take that truck with them everywhere. But we bought those 2 trucks back to back, 2 years apart, so that's kind of why we're in the position that we're in, having an '04 and then an '06, and then an '08, another '08, so they're just somewhat stacked on top of each other. Which, going by the CIP, you go with the 20 years, even if you go with the 25 years, we've got 2 trucks that are over the 25. My fear is, as a fire chief, that one thing that I don't want to happen is we're out there in our engine, and we got guys inside fighting a fire, and something happens, that thing shuts down, blows up. That's gonna be bad. So that, and am I saying that a brand new truck won't do that? No. But I feel like your chances of a newer truck failing you is less.
So, right now, you're paying for those people out of fund balance,
Yes.
but you've got 1.4 in your fund balance right now. Have you allocated that money
We
to pay
did
for
at the
them?
beginning of the year.
Yeah, at the beginning of the year, as you see in the memo, we had 1.345 million. And it's decreased every year because we've been paying them out of that. So it will decrease this year, but we won't know what that number is until the end of the year. So it may be, should be less than $1 million is what it'll be.
Take a moment. I want to take a moment to just kind of share with you guys really where I'm at in my position in all of this, and my thoughts on it, and hopefully it'll be clear for everybody. First thing is, you guys know I fully support all the first responders here. That's the reason why a number of years ago, I took on a volunteer position as a chaplain. Work you guys do is super important and very needed. And I don't think a lot of times people fully realize like the extent of like truly what that need is. So please understand, like, I'm in support of you guys. This board, on my short time being here, we've made a lot of significant capital improvements. And the thing that keeps coming up is for us to understand, like, yes, it's a limited amount of funds. I look at the budget this year versus even from last year going up. We're trying to get 2 things accomplished, and we're gonna have to prioritize really how we're gonna do this, okay? There has to be an increase in taxes in order to be able to help fund all these different things throughout the county. But the choice has now become, do we put the burden on locals or do we put it on the visitors coming through? Okay? the way I'm looking at this is if we can focus on like getting just some more funds coming in, period, it makes it a lot easier later on down the line to be able to go with a increase, a millage rate increase, or, for whatever departments are gonna be needing that. I don't feel like it's gonna be an easy thing to be able to put that burden all together on everybody in the county. And what I'm referring to is I'm really in favor of supporting, quarter cent sales tax right now, because I feel like that's gonna help start, in a broad sense, bring more money into the county and open the door as well for us to move into these other areas like what we're trying to do with you guys. So I gotta be honest, I don't know if this is the right time to be able to do that, to be honest with you guys. I think when it comes to the volunteer issues that we're having, instead of just looking at the fact that we do have an issue with the volunteers, it's really coming up with programs that's gonna help either motivate or incentivize new volunteers to come in and want to be able to be there. Because that seems to be a big part of the problem really all across the nation, with just many of these departments, you can't get anybody to volunteer. And my thought process is, if you're not going to start with them when they're young, good luck trying to get them while they're older. Okay? If the young people can't even get it into their system to be volunteers at any cost and understand the concept of giving without needing somebody to always give you something back for it, then what are we going to do with adults who are already set in their ways? So we have these issues that sometimes, to me, we're tackling a problem, but the way that we're trying to tackle the problem, it's like trying to put a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. You know what I'm saying? If it's a more serious need, let's go in depth with the need that's there so that we can try to accomplish a whole lot more in the end. So my position in this is I would like to be able to support all the first responders here. But the way that this is going about right now, my support is going to go more towards increasing taxes in a way that we can get people that are coming through this county to be able to pay into ours the same way that our citizens keep going to other counties to enjoy other things, and they're paying into their quarter cent sales tax. We got to be able to find ways to keep the money here and open up that door later on for us to be able to do any incremental increases we need to make, because we got to be able to show the people what in the world we doing with the funds that we have coming in to begin with. So it's not, just to say no, like I don't want to support this, but it's more or less like a timing thing for me. Would it be better for us to start with a quarter cent sales tax this year and perhaps next year's budget revisit this exact issue with your department and some of the other departments that have been approaching us as well? So that's just where my thought process is with this. Okay?
Let me ask you a few obvious questions so I can build my little chart right here. What's your current mill rate for our tax?
It is 191.
And you're proposing,
391.
and what's that net generation?
It's $1,209,500.
209?
1209500.
Do either of you know how many staff Cashiers Fire Department has on paid staff?
Chief, county employee, one, the fire chief,
Just a rough number of paid fire.
6 during the day, four firemen, 24 hours a day.
And then 24 hours a day. All right, what about town of Franklin? Mr. K, do you know off the top of your head?
So they've got 3 on a shift, so they've got 9 plus 1, I believe, is 10, I think. The number.
If I'm hearing you right, and pardon my experience in emergency services, I have to lean on Mr. Cabe here. You don't have the reoccurring revenue to fund the 6 current employees you have. Is that what I just heard?
Yes.
I guess going back in time when we hired them, can you kind of give me the background on that scenario? Like, was there funds allocated, reoccurring to hire the employees, or were they hired out of fund balance?
They were hired with fund balance. And again, what had happened was we had some fund balance, and then there's 2 years when we took in the increase to pay for the building loan. But it took 2 years to build the building in order to pay the first loan payment. So that had built up.
We had
The
to have
fund
the
balance.
increase for the
But we,
LGC to approve.
To build the building.
of the
I mean, we increased taxes to build the building. and then we couldn't pay the payment, so we hired 6 employees.
No, we
And
could
then-
pay the payment.
I didn't mean to say couldn't, but essentially, the balloon and, but we had a surplus there, so we used that funding
So
until the payments were due.
Yes, the county allowed us to raise the rate in order to pay the $600,000
Just trying to paint a big
payment. So the $600,000 for the building was there to service the debt service.
At this point in time, we don't have the reoccurring to pay for the 6 we have, and then the 3 proposed
Correct,
positions.
correct.
I mean, no disrespect, but I feel like Cashers is a model fire department. And, I mean, Chief Dillard up there is incredible. I mean, how do they make this work? I mean, is there anything they're doing that we're not, or is there anything different? Is he admin through Jackson County? Do either of you know?
I don't know, their fire tax is, do you know their fire tax rate?
I mean, if we're comparing apples to apples, we can't compare Highlands to Clark's Chapel, but we can compare Highlands to Cashers, in my opinion.
I want to say they're,
Three, I think.
So they're just
294
is what theirs is. 294 in Cashers.
They're at 294, and we're
their
at,
valuation, though, if I'm not mistaken,
I think their district is a lot larger.
is much
I
larger.
think it's one of the largest.
How many
Right.
substations does
I think they have 7 stations.
7
total.
stations total?
So we have one substation,
Yep,
and John knows how that substation came about.
right.
So the country club folks, which would have been Highlands Falls, Colasaja, and Wildcat, wanted their fire insurance lowered. And so to do that, if you put a substation out that way, you would get that. So they raised the money and they bought the property and built a substation. And that's the reason we got the one substation. So when a truck is replaced, one of those trucks in the substation, correct me if I'm wrong, is pushed
Trying
out.
to take that old 1252, we'll probably surplus it. Put
And then that
51
substation is,
in there as a reserve tanker or the tanker for the substation.
And I don't know the numbers to this, but, thinking about Randy and his substations and all that stuff, and Colasaja Fire Department is now opening their substation on Ellijay, and the people on Buck Creek are screaming because of their insurance ratings and rates. I see 2 things there that we should be really, before we start shifting all these trucks around, there should be 2 campaigns here. One is to get the folks out there that would be impacted on Buck Creek to do like the folks out at Colasaja Club and Wildcat and everybody. I mean, you don't have to have some big, massive, elaborate building. You can put a metal building there with bays, drill a well, put a bathroom in there, and put 2 trucks in, and you've got a substation. Those folks on Buck Creek would save enough money to pay for that building. And we should be focusing on that part, number 1. And number 2, you said it best. The folks out there in the country clubs, they saw the savings with the insurance. They bought the land, they put the building in, and they paid for all that. And all Highlands Fire Department had to do was put 2 trucks in there and all those folks out there, and it helps people on the east side of town to have an apparatus. That's the way the volunteer stuff. You were talking about, and I understand the paid firemen, they want to be in the first engine out for a structure fire, but we always ran medical calls in the pickup or the Tahoe or whatever, and I can just see that first truck out going up VZ Top for a medical call and coming back down through there and burning the brakes up and everything else. So it just,
So I'll give you a prime example of the reason that they do that. They were on a medical call, I don't remember the exact location, on a medical call. While they were on the call, it was either a vehicle accident or a car fire, one of the 2. Well, they have everything that they need. They have jaws on there. They have everything that they need on that truck. So while they were in the middle of this medical call, yes, I would love for them just to be able to zip around in a pickup, which we're working on that. We'll have a smaller truck with some water on it, hopefully soon. But while they're on that call, getting a call for a fire or a wreck or whatever, so they like to be prepared. So they don't have to come back to the station, get a different truck and then go. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, I understand, Ryan, but at the same time, if they're on a medical call with that apparatus and they have a wreck that they need the jaws of life, they're not going to abandon that patient at that medical call, so that truck is tied up on a medical call when it should be at the station for you or Roger Lee or anybody to pick up and go to that.
They will leave if the EMS crew releases them.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I get it.
Which is what happened on that scenario.
But, and we had those discussions years ago about, you know, we don't want to tie up our equipment for any type of call when it's equipped for another type of call. I mean, you don't want to tie up the rescue truck in case there's a rescue. I'm not trying to dictate the operation of Highlands Fire Department. I retired, so, but at the same time, I have to try to get you guys to help us help you in getting and of what you truly need without bankrupting what local people are left in Highlands. And we talk about this. At Highlands, there's been a max exodus of local people in Highlands, whether they've passed away or it's getting so expensive that they can't stay there. And we're still down that pattern, and no wonder we can't have a feeder program. Our kids going through college or going to college, unless their family had property that they retained in Highlands, they can't stay there. They can't come back. So we're in a long-term problem. You know, I listened to the town board meeting. We're talking about employee housing and affordable housing and all this other stuff, and then an hour and a half later, we're talking about raising taxes 3 cents and a total of 5 cents. And that's why, you know, my phone rang off the hook. I know you had your meeting up there, and I asked a lot of people why they didn't show up to that meeting. And their response was, I don't want them thinking that I'm against their service. And they're not going to come and speak against it. So at that same point, if you can figure out a way to make this happen with one additional person, instead of $300,000, you have $100,000 for that paid position, then that leaves $200,000 to go towards a truck. But I understand, you need staff. I mean, you protect billions and billions of dollars worth of real estate. And people are proud of some of the local people. Man, I love the work that you did and your fire department did. I support them. But with all these increases, we can't. So I feel for you, Ryan, for being the chief of something that's, but at the same time, you know, we're limited on what the people are telling us that they can pay and stuff like that without not supporting you. And that's why I said maybe we do a campaign there to start raising money for a new truck, see if we can do it that way. And start asking the people, start including the community back in the fire department like it once was.
Let me interject a minute, John.
Yeah.
I'm hung up on the operational reoccurring expenses, right? So if we essentially allocate, you know, 600,000 or whatever, and our fund balance is stuck around 790, is that what I understand, Mr. Ward?
That's what it would be if all 689,000 that was a fund balance appropriated was used.
So I guess what I'm asking is, if we go one full year with 6 paid staff, essentially at the end of next year, I mean, are you depleted in your fund balance, or is there enough revenue to cover that?
It'll be close. I mean, we're going to get very low.
I don't want to play devil's advocate, but for the same reasons you just suggested, John, that everyone's leaving supports the fact of hiring because they're not staying up there, but I'm hung up that you can't pay the staff you currently have.
Right.
And you're wanting 3 more. I mean, is there a way to, Chief, to fix the shift that Mr. Sherrill's talking about where you can have, where chief, assistant chief, everybody isn't there on banker's hours, and essentially we divert that to the weekends and nights and weekends? I mean, his point has merit. Everybody wants to work banker's hours and, being a firefighter Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, but it's, Saturday night, 2 in the morning. That's what I'm worried about,
Could be visited. I'm not gonna say that it would happen. I just don't see myself as the fire chief going to work shift work. Nor would I see the assistant chief going to work shift work.
But you show up at that call at 2 a.m.
9 times out of 10, yes, sir, I do. So when I leave, I was hired Monday through Friday for 8 hours a day. Robbie has started working 410s a couple years ago. So he comes in early. He'll come in like 6:30 in the morning. I come in at 9 and I stay till 5, just to have that extra coverage. Does that make sense? Have a little bit, that third person there early and then the third person there later in the afternoon. in the evening. So I stay till 5. When I go home, if it's a structure fire, major wreck, brush fire, something like that, 9 times, if I'm available, I'm coming back out. Yes, sir.
So who would be there on Saturday? Just,
The paid guys and then the volunteers, if I'm out of town.
two current paid guys?
Yes, sir.
What's their hours where they work?
They work 48.96. They work 2 days on, 4 days off.
Well, I'm with Chairman Young on that. I think, it is alarming to know that we hired 6 guys out of fund balance and we can't pay for that recurring expense. I mean, I think that's, what's the importance here? Is it people? Is it trucks? I mean, can we live without people? Can you live without trucks?
I mean,
If we paid for the people, could you use your fund balance to buy your trucks?
We could definitely look at that. What we have left, yes. You need the people.
I was assuming that was the answer.
I mean, like, if during the day, or at any time, if Highlands Fire Department has a call, all 3 of those people would be going on that call.
Well, I think I think what we've talked about, not to interrupt, but the fire service is changing, obviously, with the volunteers and all that stuff. So having the people is important. I just think that if we're funding people out of fund balance, I mean, that's a dangerous game to play, but we're there. And if you have fund balance that you could purchase a truck with, or whatever you got to do if we can't get where we need to be, but that's just kind of where I'm at with it. It's
What do you cut out to cover those people next year? That's my question.
right.
For easy math, you call them $100,000 a person. Where do you generate the revenue to carry what you currently have?
So you're talking $1.1 million in employee salaries at 11 people. If you put 3 more, they have 8 already, so you're at 11, so that's $1.1 million just in,
I'm under the
employee
impression
salaries.
It's 6 and 3. Am I right?
no, there's 2 administrators. They already have 8.
Yeah, we have 8
You can't pay the admin. I mean, they were hired in 14, so that should
Yeah,
have been before the building.
It's the 6 full-time firemen that work 24/7. Those are the ones that
6 and the
is being
3.
paid with fund balance.
Right.
So the paid firemen, are they town employees or state employees?
Town employees.
So all 8 employees at Highlands Fire Department are town employees.
Yes, sir.
We're no different than the electric department or the water department.
Just another town department.
We're a town department under the town umbrella. Our funding comes from fire tax.
Yeah. So in essence, really, the town of Highlands has really taken over operations, Highlands Fire Department. There's no, it's not a, you might call it a Highlands Volunteer Fire Department, but realistically, it should be called the Town of Highlands Fire Department, because the town is dictating all operations to the point of even hiring the staff with nobody. I mean, obviously, the funds for the fire department come from county tax collections sent to the town of Highlands. And that's where the problem is with operations now, and what the volunteer firemen are saying. We have no say. We have no say in anything. They don't have business meetings anymore. That's where we conducted all of our stuff. And we went to the tax base before I left. And knowing the uproar when we had to turn over the checkbook to Town Highlands, that didn't settle very well. But we still, while I was there, we still had business meetings. And the firemen and the chief and assistant chief, we had business meetings that we ran that department. And now,
We have something major, we do have business meetings, yes.
yeah, but they're not in, we went over all the financials at the business meetings and everything else. And it's my understanding that's not conducted at Highlands Fire Department.
Not at every meeting.
Yeah. So, to me, it's almost like, and just for lack of better terms, as the volunteers are participating, some dedicated, some not dedicated. And basically, when the pager goes off, they show up, they get in whatever vehicle, they grab their turnout gear, go to that call, come back, get in their vehicle and leave. And it seems like their input is no longer valued. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but from what some of the volunteers have told me is it's totally different from what it used to be, and I can understand the lack of interest of being a volunteer in that situation. But I really would like to know what that looks like. If you can shift this stuff around and make, your two administrators, the state recognizes them as firefighters, the town recognizes them as administrators of the fire department. Add the third person, that would give them 3 during the day shift, and then let the, because if that will work, then you only need one person. And like I said, you're right, Ryan, I was there when those 2 trucks were bought and everything else, and we're using a lot of hypotheticals, what if. Well, there's a lot of what ifs, in every day that we get up, but, I think the taxpayers deserve not what ifs. I think the taxpayers deserve a factual answer and a reason to, you're gonna raise their taxes, present them why you're raising taxes. I know we can talk about it, but are there other options? And that's what I swore into office for, was an effective and efficient government that, our taxpayers can afford and appreciate.
So when I was hired in 2011, I was hired as a fireman, as a 40-hour week employee. In 2013, I got elected as the fire chief of the department. In 2000, I believe it was 14, early 15, the town board decided to make those two positions, chief and assistant chief, hired positions. Not for some stability, I guess, structure in the department, they made those two positions a hired position. So I answer directly to Josh. I don't see myself going to shift work.
I don't blame you. So, I mean, Ryan, I get it. I mean, and you may answer this and you may not. How many years you got left till you retire?
15,
15 years. What about the assistant chief?
about 6 months.
6 months, okay? So
Six
if I
months
was
to a
the
year.
assistant chief, I wouldn't want to, I mean, I'm leaving in 6 months.
Right.
So you're gonna have to ultimately either replace him or that position goes away,
Correct.
okay? So there's a lot of things that's happening over the next several months that would impact Highlands Fire Department. And as far as I know, and manager, correct me if I'm wrong, Highlands Fire Department is still contracted with Macon County, North Carolina, correct?
Correct.
Okay? So the town of Highlands is superseding what our contract for Highlands Fire Department by dictating the operations. Is that not, I mean, they made choices to hire 8 people. We weren't included in that process.
So our contract doesn't specify details as far as personnel. It specifies performance requirements. So the only time we would get involved would be the performance requirements if you don't meet the protection class 7, which is the minimum, and then obviously Factor 9S and the other stuff. I don't know that I would say they're superseding because our contract is very vague as far as the operation, because being a contractor, there are limitations on what we can do as far as dealing with day-to-day stuff that they do. We have to give them a job to do, we give them the performance requirements, and then have to hold them responsible for doing that job.
I'm pretty sure when we hired the 6 full-time firemen, we submit a budget request thing to the county.
Come on up to Mike.
Okay, sorry. Rebecca Schuler, I'm the finance director for the town. Every year, and I think Lindsay can attest to this, we have to submit budget requests to the county for the fire department. And when we hire those full-time firemen, I have to do a whole sheet that says what we're doing. So I don't know who was on the board at the time, I'd have to go back and do research, but the county saw those requests. So yes, our town board may have approved it to send it to you guys to be approved, but it was still approved by your board. So I don't think saying that y'all didn't see that or whatever, you may not have, John, I don't know if you were here, but somebody saw it, and they could have told us no then. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, I understand.
I'm agreeing with you, I'm not being able to pay for them is one thing, but it was approved by the county as well, not just the town board. So,
Yeah.
pardon myself, I just wanted
Well,
to
no,
share that.
I mean, with Rebecca, with you being the
Yeah.
finance person, I mean, you know all the ins and outs. But, you know, we talk about it as far as our fund balance. You're not really supposed to pay for recurring costs out of the fund balance,
No,
such as salaries and everything else, because eventually that's gone.
I'm
And-
not,
And that's like funding positions out of grant funds. You know, if you watch what we do, if there's a position that's fulfilled by grants, at the end of that grant funding, that position is over. And so it's tough.
who made the decision to pay that reoccurring expense out of fund balance? And why
So,
was that
so
decision?
what had happened is the fund balance was large. And there had 2.5. So there was some fund balance there. Then the Board of Commissioners, Macon County Board of Commissioners at the time, approved the 2 cents to build the new building. And so we collected that for 2 years before we were completed with the building in order to make that first loan payment. So that fund balance built up to the 2.5. Well, we knew, we wanted to just write a check, basically, for the 2 years and give it to pay down the note on the building. Well, that was restricted within the loan documents, so we could not make a balloon payment. So at that point, we were sitting there, okay, we got 2.5 million in fund balance, we got a lot. The board inevitably built the building to hire the 6 full-time firemen. So the board said, we've got this, we can support this for a number of years, let's go ahead and hire the 6 firemen
But what
and
was
pay
the-
for it to lower that fund balance down.
At that time, what was the plan for paying those firemen when that decision was made?
Well, as it lowered down, then they would come back and ask the county board for an
We knew that at
increase.
some point we were gonna have to come back
Yes.
and ask
Got it.
Yes.
for an increase.
But the fund balance was so high, to bring that down, we knew we could fund for several years. And that's what we've been doing. So it's been going downward, and now we're here asking for the increase to cover those from now on. Because obviously coming in here with $2.5 million fund balance, this board, and I could understand, is not going to give an increase with that kind of fund balance. I wish we could have, like I say, wrote a check and put it toward the building, but it wasn't possible.
Oh, a little whistle there. I came in this morning thinking, man, we're going to do, I would support a half a penny to get your 3 guys. We would address some trucks at a later date. I know that we're going through the process of the contracts with all the fire departments. I know that's coming up, so kind of wanted to push that down the road a little bit. But now, I feel like I'm not interested in hiring those 3 guys, but somehow we got to figure out how to come up with a penny to pay the 6 guys that you currently have that you can't afford. So I say all that to say I don't know where I'm at right now. Where are you at, John?
I'm stuck. I mean, I understand Ryan needs manpower. And what that looks like, I'm really stuck because, at the end of the day, you have to look at what the people out here that's struggling to survive and what do you really, really, really need right now?
Well, right now, it
protect.
sounds like they really, really, really need to pay those 6 people they
Well,
currently
they-
have.
I was gonna say, like, you need, right now, it seems like the immediate need is to figure out how to make sure that the 6 that you do have can get paid, because it's not gonna make sense to hire 3 more when we can't even pay the 6 that we have. So the question is right now, what needs to be done to be able to get these 6 people paid without it having to be coming out of the fund balance? Like, what's a good game plan right now? Would a half a cent do that?
It would take a cent.
It'd take a
penny.
full cent.
And can you break down those numbers that you sent with the salaries? Because it ended up being, I think if you average that out, it's about $95,000.
It is with salaries and then benefits, once you figure in insurance, retirement, FICA, and all that. So basically, for the 3 new firemen, they would just be firemen. So what we have on each shift right now is 2 per shift, and you have an officer and a fireman. Is it a lieutenant? So a lieutenant and a fireman on each shift. The lieutenant makes more than the fireman. So all we're asking for with the 3 new ones is 3 firemen. So it's a lower pay. And that was the $287,000 for those 3. So when you look at the 6, you've got 3 of those, and you've got 3 of the lieutenants that make a higher wage.
Just a quick comment. I'm nobody to just want to share my opinion with you, but I feel like you're in a delicate position as chief. And to Mr. Sherrill's point, I think you kind of hold the purse strings to the public and, meetings, events. cookouts, benefits, dinners, just getting the community in there, building rapport, relationships. I think you hold those purse strings, and if there's any way, I mean, that's your seed corn for your future firemen and women. But I don't know. I look at what Cashers has been able to do, 7 substations, and I feel like it's vibrant. I mean, the tone down there is just, man, I don't know, kudos to them, and I'd like for us to be like that, and I think there's a way we can do that, and I don't know, I'm hung up right here as well.
Mr. Chairman, I can clarify, we were talking about Cashers a minute ago, if you just want reference. They're funded with 2 different funds because Cashers and Highlands are the only 2 departments because they have some property that's in Macon, it's in Jackson, but don't know when to get there from Macon. So the only service fees that they have over there are for Highlands and Cashers. Cashers, they actually, according to the budget message this year, proposed a decrease in their service fee to 1.6 cents per 100, which brings in 1,900,000 and some change. But then Jackson County has a public safety service district tax, and that's where it makes up the difference. We said 2.94. That brings in 1,225,000. So their budget's 3.1 million, if my math is reasonably correct. And according to this, they have 13 employees at the moment.
Wow.
I mean, I don't know what to, some of these things are, some of the questions are unanswered. Can you make it work with one more staff member?
If they can, though, how do we address the 1 penny for the 6 people they have?
Well, okay. So we talked about the fund balance. If they don't get the 1 penny, there's still enough money in the fund balance to pay those folks for another year. Correct?
It would be.
Okay. So that's how that's funded. And then if there can be a campaign to try to raise the money for that new engine, then next year, when it comes up for that increase, then you might add that other half a penny to fund the employees. There again, it's hypothetical, if we can raise the money, which, in the years past, we have been able to. But I see our people really struggling, and I see the fire department struggling. So it's a $1 million question as to what can we fund, or what can the taxpayers fund to get them members to have a full-paid staff, and hope and pray that we can raise the money for that new apparatus. And that way, you're not impacting the people that can't afford to pay anymore. Those folks coming to Highlands are very generous people. I mean, if it wasn't for them, Highlands would be really behind. There's some of the poorest people still lives in Highlands in this county. But I also asked the question, how many employees in the town of Highlands still live in Highlands? You're looking at him right there. That's the only employee in the town of Highlands that lives in Highlands Township. So it's a tough position. I mean, I want to help you, Ryan. I just don't know. Talked to Roger Lee last night a little bit, and he said, we got to have manpower. And so, would.
And I feel like that Roger Lee and David and some of those guys, they're the ones that are dedicated, they're getting burnt out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They're getting burnt out being the only
Well, Roger Lee's been on there for
Oh, I know, you
40-something years, perfect attendance.
can't do nothing with him.
So, but, yeah, I mean, when the pager goes, or when that 911 call comes in, you need to respond to try to save this. So, but I think without manpower, it don't matter how nice of a engine you have, it's not going anywhere. So I'm stuck. I really think the most important critical aspect of this is 1 or 3 new positions and move on. And I mean, if I can, if we do a campaign, I mean, I'd be willing to try to help with trying to raise funds if it was, if I was asked to do that. And there again, I mean, I hear it through all the fire departments in the communities is we just really don't feel like we're part of the fire department or the fire department's part of us anymore. Not necessarily just Highlands, it's across the county. And we need to connect that dot back in. And so.
So the question is, do we go a penny for the 6 they currently have? I mean, I feel like the need is there
Well,
for
I
more.
think they've got the money to pay that 6. I mean, it's gonna deplete their fund balance down to another, it's gonna be, what would be left if you,
We don't know that exact number.
yeah, but you said you had 1 point what?
At 1.3, it's going to fall below $1 million, then it'll probably be another 400,000 or so, 500,000.
So they're still gonna be left with
So-
$500,000 in the fund
But
balance.
then what do we do then?
Well, that's when we come, if we do enough to get him the help that he needs, and then reassess this thing after the assistant chief leaves, you may end up saying, hey, I just want to be administrator, and you may hire another chief, or you may, I mean, who knows? No?
He's done, he's done.
So I'm just looking at it as somewhere along the line, we can't have 2 people on day shift and have 4 people when the need is at night and the weekends.
Well,
I
let's
mean,
leave-
we run calls
Oh,
during the day
yeah,
as well. I mean,
Yeah,
I may go out tomorrow, if it's not raining, and help the guys work
Yeah.
on hydrants.
right.
I mean,
Oh, I'm not saying you're not responding, but where you're lacking response is at night. We
Yeah.
talked about that.
right.
In the wee hours of the morning, you're lacking that. Well, if you and the assistant chief worked the days like you're hired and paid to do, and you had 1 person, that would give you the 3 people on that shift. And then you could take the other person and move them over to do the 3rd person, and you hire 1 more, and that puts them, and that gives you 3 people. That gives you,
We were
Yeah.
wanting to hire 3 new employees,
right,
1 for each shift.
yeah.
So during the day, currently, there would be 5 there. And then at night, there would be 3, or around the clock.
But there's no lack of response during the day. You got people coming into town to work, and if the pager goes off, they come and respond during the day. So we're overloading the day shift with potentially 5 people, when from 8 o'clock at night till 6 o'clock in the morning is where the problem is.
I would have to look back at the stats, but if I'm not mistaken, the majority of our calls are during the day.
Yeah,
I believe our peak is 10 to 2,
yeah.
somewhere in there.
I feel like in worst case scenario, I can support a penny to get the 6 covered for right now and work towards next year adding the other 3. Because to me, it would be crazy to lose the 6 that you have and then try to gain 3. You're going to be in a worse situation. So to me, like, it seemed like the priority right now should be making sure that you can keep the 6 that you have, get that funded, not through fund balance, because that fund balance, it shouldn't be used for any recurring expenses. I get that, that's what you guys have done, but it really shouldn't be used for that. So if we can figure out, like, maybe, at the most, doing a penny right now to cover those 6, and then next year, after, because we're already looking at a countywide tax increase that we're trying to get done here with the quarter-cent sales tax. So it's like, are we asking people for too much at that point? You know what I mean? So if you get the 6 covered right now, that gives you a year to be able to figure out how to get an additional 3 on top, on top of that. But getting that 6 to be covered outside of the fund balance, I think that should be a priority.
I know we're splitting hairs right here, and I hear your point, Commissioner Sherrill. But I don't feel like we run the county like that, and I understand where you guys are. But to Danny's point, if we fund the cent, you can still use that 3%. It kind of gives you guys a little bit of leeway. If you want to do a trial with 1 or 2 new employees, you can use that fund balance, right? If the 6 current employees are covered by the 1 cent proposed, then you can run a trial run. And I think there's merit to John's point about being potentially heavy during the day. I think it's the evenings and the weekends, more particular. I'm going to assume Saturdays. When all the events are downtown, the golf courses are full. I think that's when I would speculate, but it's a tough one. I understand all points here. I really do. It's
It's a complicated issue. It really
feel
is.
like-
That's
at
the
least, and then it also, you'd have to have an increase next year or come back next year, but it's not a wallop, next year. It's more of a trajectory.
Well, if you were going to fund those 3 out of your fund balance, that ought to last you a couple of years. You're funding 6 out of them now.
Yeah.
So I think the issue is do you want to continue doing that? Because we obviously don't think it's a good idea.
You really don't want to deplete, you don't want to deplete, it's like John, I think, mentioned the other day, I didn't know that, but the county has a policy, we have a policy, our fund balance is 50%, if it drops below 50%, which it has, that's the reason the town of Highlands had to look at a tax increase, is 25%, I think you said the other day. And you kind of got to look at that as well, I think, with the fire department. You need to keep a certain percent, whether that be, at a $2 million budget, that would be, 500,000. So you want to keep some in fund balance, may not be that much, but you don't want to totally deplete it. And that would be my only concern is getting to the point where if you had a truck blow up, you couldn't fix it. Because you didn't have $150,000 to fix it, which could happen.
I'd say don't deplete it, Again, if we go with 1 cent and get the 6 covered right now, you have a little bit of a leeway for a year gap right now. If you needed to do a trial run, like Chairman said, maybe 1 or 2 extra out of your fund balance, but I would do that as a trial for 1 year, not as a recurring expense for every year after that. I would give yourself a year to be able to figure out how not to get those additional, funded, so that way all of them, everyone's being funded correctly and not out of the fund balance. So you would have a year's gap, if that makes sense, to be able to kind of make up for that, if you can.
Do you have any community events planned? Just community meetings, just get-togethers, anything up there, Town of Highlands?
August.
In August, our open house we have every year.
Is that the only thing you have this year?
We go to the school periodically for different events. School's fixing it.
I'm no one to say this, but it'd be nice to see something up there quarterly, maybe something oriented towards kids and young adults. Maybe just a spaghetti dinner, But just throwing out my 2 cents. Is anybody ready to take action? Or no action?
Sounds like it's still tabled. There's still a lot are they still working off the fund balance? Is that what you're?
Well,
And then,
honestly, I don't even know at this point.
the next year, so your fund balance, if you continue to work off of that, we all know that's a weak link. When you have recurring expenses, then it has come off your fund balance. Sitting here, I do not have a solution for you other than any, but in the situation where we need to make decisions now, I don't have a problem with the fund balance being used in such a particular way. It's safety. And if we maintain that cost through our fund balance, I think Mr. Cave would have to have some input if we can maintain that for another year.
Ask another question, Ryan. When the assistant chief retires in 6 months, this goes to you as well. Are we going to replace that person and still have 2 administrators during the day? Or are we going to take that position and put it in as a paid firefighter? Because that's funds right there at retirement that would certainly, I'm just stuck on 2 administrators, and I understand. I mean, completely. You know, I served with you and Robbie both, and I understand where you're at and where he's at. But looking down the line, to me, to have 2 administrators on the day shift is not in the best interest of the taxpayers and the finance. And that position should certainly go to a full-time paid firefighter.
And that may very well change.
And so.
Once that happens, we very well may restructure.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. 'Cause I
That
know.
would be a town board decision.
Yeah. So we've really been working on this. I mean, this has really consumed me all weekend and trying to figure out how to help you. And so, I mean, a half cent gets them 3 more positions. They fund the 6 out of the fund balance, come back next year. And, you know, rehash this thing out for the overall picture. But manager, you have heard me probably talk about this before. The 2 municipal fire departments, ultimately, eventually, Macon County's gonna have a full paid fire service. We've talked about the town of Highlands and the town of Franklin, the 2 municipal fire departments owning their departments. Have y'all had any discussions in Highlands about that being a possibility as the town of Highlands just takes control of? No?
No, there's been no conversation about that.
And I don't know how close we are, but those are probably good conversations to be had because Highlands Fire Department's not the only ones that's struggling, you know, for volunteerism and stuff like that. So ultimately, it's coming. So I don't know when, 5 years, 10 years, I have no idea, but it's a good conversation. So, I mean, guys,
Let's go with the fund balance one more year.
Half penny in the fund balance?
Pardon me?
Half penny to hire the 3 guys and let them use their fund balance one more year?
That seems to be a movement that we can make with a lot of, without having a lot of backlash on it.
I'm not playing that guy, but I feel like the problem is they're wanting to hire 3 more,
Yeah.
which is 9. And the fund balance, I'm sorry, I mean, what they currently have is 6. They're not funded, but they're wanting to hire 3 more. Mr. Sherrill, is the need there to hire the 3 more? I mean, is it?
without completely diving into this thing and figuring out a whole new scope of scheduling and everything else and shifting people around. When the assistant chief retires, they have the money for that position. If we do the day shift with the 2 administrators and 1, ultimately, in my mind, they need one more person. But only if you take the 2 paid guys off, one of them off during the day shift. and they work with the two administrators.
You're saying 7 total positions.
7 would get them if they redid their complete schedule.
That translates to ballpark 700,000 bottom line reoccurring, correct?
Yes.
So you have to get the 6 positions. I mean,
Well,
that's got to be a priority.
Well, that's in that 700,000, is those 6 positions, plus the 1, if they restructured their thing, or their,
Off a half a cent?
Take more than
a
that.
little over a penny.
The,
How would you guys feel if we matched the cashier's mill rate? That'd be 1
added
cent.
a penny in,
That'd be a cent.
Ryan?
Well, I think if we matched the penny, if we gave them the penny, that's their 6 recurring guys,
Exactly.
maybe even a 7th. At that point, you still have your fund balance. If you need a truck, go buy a truck. If
And then we can work on, and again, I don't know what Robbie's going to do.
Right.
You know, he may work several more years. I don't know. He might work 6 months. But
Right.
when that happens, we can have that discussion then. And then,
But-
and then look at the third person, how we could work that out.
But somewhere along the line, we need to, I mean, I don't want to by no means force the assistant chief out or anything like that, but, you know, we have property and lives to take care of. If you got your time and the fire department needs members and response teams and everything else, that's our focus, all of us. And so, but my recommendation be when he retires is do not fill the second administrator during the day.
Lindsay, can you tell us what, if we went to the 2.94, is that what cashier's is? How much that would be? Would that be enough to hire the extra person or no? Probably not.
The penny's 604,751, but she'll have to figure it
What the difference
out.
is.
My math can't do the 3.
So that would give you $622,893 if you went to .0294.
So that would pay for our current.
And I don't want to speak for Rebecca at all. However, from the finance perspective, it has to be terrifying for her to hear y'all say, do a trial run out of fund balance, because I know I would not want Warren to do that. Because you're going to be in the same situation you're in now, and they're going to be coming back to you. So that's just my
I think there has to
opinion.
be a change in how your fund balance is used, and it's capital. I mean, if you need a truck, buy a truck, don't hire people. Because we may not be sitting here in 3 or 4 years when you need the money, and they say no. Yeah.
In my mind, though, you have a gentleman who has potentially months to less than a year left. I mean, there's one of them right there. So if you were to fund your 6, it'd be easy to hire the 7th, knowing that position comes open. That's kind of where how I can justify that mentally.
But ultimately, that was the fund balance was the path forward. They knew they were gonna have to use the fund balance to pay those positions.
But I think now they're in a position, they're asking me, like,
Right.
hey, here we
Yeah.
are.
They
I
need
don't think we
reoccurring.
should encourage them to continue another path that says, okay, we'll try it and use the fund balance again, because they're gonna be coming right back to you, in my opinion.
It's hard
Josh.
to hire somebody
But if they-
when you can't guarantee, it's hard to hire somebody when you can't guarantee them employment more than a year.
So do you plan on approaching Jackson? Of course, it may be too late this year, but to that little section over there, just let them adjust the service fee over there too, which that's not a lot of money. I
We
think
had
you
a
only bring in, what,
conversation for
35,000 or something.
For some reason, Jackson County has always just wanted to say, we'll just give you this and not charge the rate. But we've had some conversation this year. We've not got anything confirmed that they would actually, we would give them whatever rate you come up with, we'll give them that, and maybe they could collect on that, which I don't understand why they haven't in the past, but anyway, that's been a negotiated number every so many years. I don't know why, but.
That'd make it pretty easy on cashiers if that's the current rate to collect.
Oh, well, with cashier, the same rate as cashiers.
I'll make a motion then. See where it goes. I'll make a motion that we adjust the fire tax rate for Highland Fire Department to 2.94 pennies, which is an increase of 1.03 pennies.
I hear a motion by Commissioner Breeden,
Second.
second by Commissioner Antoine. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I have to bring, I mean, I know it don't get you the truck you're looking for and all this stuff, but, is that gonna help you with your response and where you need to be? That's gonna,
I mean, the way I understand it, essentially, we're staying the same, we're just using different monies to pay our current employees, right?
yeah, so potentially giving you enough money to hire the seventh person to try to shift your schedule around to have you and the assistant chief to,
I'm gonna be honest, I'd have to have a long talk with him. I don't see that working. I don't know, I just.
Well, we do have the issue of the assistant chief. You know, again, we don't know when he's going to retire, but he's close,
Yeah.
very close. So if he win, I feel like it's time to talk about whether or not we need an assistant chief. I think that would, if not, then that would free up that money to hire another person
right.
easily.
And that's why I'm saying is
So,
that ultimately would give you two more firefighters. And you know, I mean, you see it all the time, whether it's in private business or public. You know, sometimes if a person's not willing to retire when, then sometimes you have to make that decision to better the fire department and to save the community.
It's in his plan, believe me.
Oh, I've heard it, I know. That's quicker than I thought it was, but ultimately, we just have to make decisions to give the fire department what is truly needed and give the community what is needed to save lives and protect, property. And so, and realistically, I think that the new fireman that you're talking about is a introductory level at 40-some thousand. And so benefits is $50,000.
by the time you figure health insurance and retirement, the required retirement.
So that's overdone, or that's, wow. Okay. No, I'm good. I mean, I think they need the help, and hopefully this at least gets them somewhere where they need to be.
All right, any other discussion? All in favor, please raise your right arm, state aye for the record. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Record reflect
Thank
five
you.
oh
Thank you,
vote.
guys.
Very much.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Mr. Chairman, I want to make a couple of comments. I don't see anyone from the Board of Education. I've been trying to catch up with them since last Friday. I was there this morning at 8 o'clock, trying to talk with the superintendent, and he was on emergency at that time. I guess I want to make a statement about the Board of Education's budget. And I just wanted to be on record. And again, I want to thank Mr. Ridenhour for the information he sent out to us over the weekend on how to proceed in this type of discussion. With the local current expense proposed budget of the maintain for the Franklin High School, for the school system, the total maintained seems to be $14,294,138.65, which is 21% of the 68 million plus there. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with the capital outlay proposed budget. But what I have the problem with, I'd like to be on record that I would request, and I'll find them and share them, my opinion too, for them to go back within their local current expense and local capital outlay monies to see if they can find monies that pertain to their a top priority request that's not is proposed budget, and it pertains to exceptional children's teachers. It pertains to EC numbers continue to rise, and projected enrollment for 26-27 will be higher than in recent years. To not have that in the budget may be, Mr. Rodner, illegal. I think that has to have an attention. Also, the other part of it, let me finish that sentence. Outside of self-contained classroom, 3 EC teachers currently carry caseloads exceeding 40 students each. People, that's criminal. To effectively serve these students and improve EC testing and outcomes, caseload ratios must be reduced. That's not in their budget. Mental health professional, Macon County School. Also, self-contained exceptional children's teachers. 3, these positions are needed to keep up with the growing number of exceptional children students by providing specialized instruction support in self-contained classrooms. And the last one there, exceptional children personal care assistants. 4. These positions are needed to support more students with significant needs by helping with daily care, safety, and access to learning. The thing I don't want to be on record is, and when I find the superintendent, I just want y'all to be aware of it. I'm going to ask that they look at their local current expense and local capital outlay expense again to see if you can incorporate this monies. Now, it's not cheap. What I just read to you there and what they've got here in numbers comes to $546,978.98. And so that's a pretty big request to ask them to go back in their budget and look at current expense and capital outlay expense in the maintain area and try to find that monies to support this request regarding exceptional children. By law, IDEA is the federal law that ensures all students have access to a free and appropriate public education. To ensure that all children with disabilities have available to them a free, appropriate public education that emphasizes special education and related services designed to meet their unique needs and prepare them for further education, employment, and independent living. And I think not on purpose, but I think they need to go back and review this to make sure that we're not doing something outside the law, that we stay within the law. And we all know the new high school was built on the backs of exceptional children. They were one of our forefront runners on this new high school. And because of these type of laws, you can even go and look at your ADA Title II, state and local government activities. We are responsible. So my encouragement is to the Macon County Board of Education is to go back and review their current expense and your capital monies and see if you can find enough monies to incorporate those 4 areas there. And I just want to be on record for that. And I will do a follow-up unless there's a people here said, you need to speak to them here, and that's what I was trying to do today. Or you can go and speak to them, make the same request to them that they find the monies, but I want to make sure y'all were aware of what I was doing. If you want to hear me say that in front of them, they're not here.
Wish they were here. And I would also say I agree with you. So when I saw those numbers, I think that's alarming. But let me just share real quick. So the way we get there, if that's what we want to do, is what Jackson County does. So Jackson County dictates how they spend their money with the school system. So they're giving them overall $11.25 million. Part of that is current expenses for $8.6 million. 1.3 in teacher supplements, 4.93 for counselors, 225 for junior ROTC. So they dictate what programs they're supporting. So if we wanted to say, well, EC is, and it is extremely important, and those numbers are alarming to have 40 students with one teacher, we would have to pull that out and say this is what, but currently,
Right.
I wish they were here to answer the questions or at the very least defend themselves. But currently, we give them money.
Right.
And they spend it on what they see fit.
Right.
So,
And I guess I was just trying to make the piece to encourage them to go back into your budgets and look at it and find that $500,000 to incorporate into this with exceptional children. But I just didn't want to do something out here on Gary Shields by himself without y'all knowing it.
I agree with you 100%. And if we go through, I mean, if we go through with what we kind of have talked about in some of these meetings, you're talking about a $1.2 million increase, maybe a little bit more.
There you
So
go.
we could certainly ask them to fund those things.
I was looking at in the local current expense proposed budget on top priorities. The exceptional children's teachers, Franklin High School, was for one, $69,549.96. The mental health professional for Macon Middle School was $77,029.66. Self-contained exceptional children's teachers, 3, was a $208,649.89. Then exceptional children's personal care assistants. To me, that, with my rough math, $546,978, $546,978.98. If I had that money brought out of those other items, they have to prioritize or whatever it may be, or we can do it, but.
Well, I think we have to make a decision on how we want to fund this because
Right.
we've been talking about a percentage. So
Right.
we want to get them to a percentage, and that's their percentage. And if we gave them that $1.2 million increase, I mean, that gets them to a little over 18%. So if you go back and you just look at the years of funding that the school system has had, I mean, they were pretty flat for a lot of years. I mean, they had an increase in 2019. It was a pretty decent sized increase, about $1 million. And then it went up, stayed the same. It went down a little bit.
What did we fund them in 19, Barry?
2019, their operation was $9.2 million. So now we're at,
14.
well, not what we're funding, where we're
Yeah.
at right now. If we give them that, well, that was including their capital. So without the increase, they'd be at 11.8 million, with including that capital outlay money, which is the 1.1 million. So their overall, just their operations in 2019 was 8.3 million, right at 8.4 million. Right now, we're at 10.6. So a little over $2 million in 6 or 7 years.
And I'd just like to say, Mr. Ridenhour, if you'd like to make a comment on this, that this is serious stuff when you start working with exceptional children, with the laws that they are supported by. Whether you're talking about IDEA or ADA or whatever it is, they're supported by the law that we provide for them, their education. And so I just wouldn't want to have another situation where we had before, where a piece of exceptional children caused quite a bit of grief that we weren't supporting it. And we finally came around and worked with it. But I appreciate what you did over the weekend, the information you sent us, how to approach this problem. Thank you.
I will say, I actually text Superintendent Lynch just to make sure they weren't hung up or coming late or something, and he's had a conflict this morning, so he's not gonna be here.
Yeah.
Any more thoughts?
Personnel at Macon County School System. You know, they, seems like they do the same thing that's happened in county government. A position would be funded by grants. And once that grant money is gone, then they expect local dollars to kick in to keep funding that position. I did call down to Raleigh to find out about these budget cuts and everything else, and they're supposed to be sending me some information about the school system, and there has not been any budget cuts that would impact the Macon County school system. And they were the ones that told me that you look at the local positions that were funded by grants, and now, like I said, those grant funds are gone, and they have those positions, and they don't want to do away with that position. And then there's other ways that it's my understanding that they can transfer positions out of this way of funding to put them in the grant fund so that they know that those grant funds are not going to be renewed, and then they expect the local dollars to keep them afloat. So my question to that is, what does the local numbers look like 2019? How many people were funded locally by, or in the school system by local tax dollars in 2019?
I should know that. I served on the ESSER committee that started in 2020 or 2019 there. And we knew, and Mr. Lynch was a part of the team and did an excellent job. We knew in 2024 those monies were out. We also, I made sure that the people who were interviewing for jobs knew that in 4 years that money would go out. And like John's saying, there was always a piece, well, the county contended. I said, no, you can't do that. This is the money you have. And when in 4 years, you can't depend upon the county supporting this continually. If they do, God bless them. But if you don't, it's the end of it. And Mr. Lynch wasn't the superintendent, but he was very much involved in this, and he knows the trying to maintain the type of monies that you're talking about would be a challenge, and we're in that challenge. And but when it comes to exceptional children, we got hearts for them. I got hearts for the families. If it's increasing, we need to make sure that we take care of those exceptional children in our schools. And I think the law here supports that we have this obligation. However you want me to proceed as a Board of Education, I'll talk with Mr. Lynch and try to get this thing moving. But I think there's a time frame here that I'm concerned about also.
So Commissioner Sherrill's question, I don't have data back to 2019. This year, on the maintain request, the total positions that they had on local was 107.95. Last year, the total request on local was 100.2.
We're on 104 this year.
107.95.
Almost, so see, that's And that's what the state, the folks that I talked to said, you need to look at these positions that they transfer, because if you track that, you will find that the school system, it's not state impacted funding. It was grant funding that is no longer available. And of course, if local tax dollars will support it, they'll keep hiring. And then they also said that, back to Commissioner Breeden's point, is the money that Macon County pumps into the school system, we should be tracking that money and earmarking that without just giving it to them and saying, here, do with it what you want, because we saw what happened with what we thought the lunch money was going last year. So it's a very complicated budget process in the school system. There's so many avenues for monies funneling into that budget. But I mean, that's 7 positions that they want local dollars to fund since last year. Where does it stop? Where does it end? I mean, it's easy to say, yeah, just keep going, but to me, if they are positions that are really required or mandated by the state's going to fund them. These are what we want, not necessarily what we need. So you just got to be careful. That law that you're talking about is a federal mandate. And so,
But it's also responsible of the local and the state. Title II requires the state and local governments give people with the disabilities an equal opportunity to benefit from all of their programs, services, and activities, public education being one of these activities. Employment, transportation, recreation, healthcare, social service, courts, and voting. This is a mandate, or I'm going to say a law, that talks about that, and I think we have an obligation, or Gary Shields feels like he has an obligation, and I hope this board does, that we need to make sure that our exceptional children, those families, those people, that we adhere to this, that these young people, and if it says in the information here it's increasing, it's a tough family world out there today. We all know that.
one thing that really caught me the last meeting was I asked a very specific question. If you don't get the funding, what does the Macon County school system do? We cut out programs.
That's right.
Well, wait a minute. We're not going to cut staff. So at the end of the day, who's impacted? Our children that we're trying to protect. So you don't cut out programs. You find other ways to fund those programs and keep as much staff as you possibly can to do these positions. But at the end of the day, it's not about building a paycheck. It's about taking care of our children. And if we're automatically just going to cut out the children's programs, I think that's the wrong avenue for funding.
And I don't think the law will allow us to cut out when we're talking about exceptional children.
Right, and that's what you're talking about,
Right.
the importance of funding that,
Yes.
okay? And I don't disagree with you. But when you have a budget shortfall, you have to make very hard decisions, and it should not be impacting the ones that you're serving.
Amen. I agree with you. It's, they got to go back and look at your capital outlay and your current expense and see how you can, I'm going to say, reduce that to the point that you can incorporate the exceptional children into the education that they deserve, the families.
And see, I had some questions for whoever was here with the school system, and they're not here, so those questions can't be answered.
Well, Lindsay could probably do a better job of this than I can, but if we just go through and break down their operational budget. So again, if we're trying to get to a percentage of what we're going to fund for out of our budget to the school system, if you go back to, I mean, she gave me numbers all the way back to 2014, and it started out operationally at 7.8 million. And it rode 7.8 million, actually went down to 7.6 until 2019. And it went to 8.3. So there was a pretty significant increase there. 2020 was 8.8, 21 was 8.8, 22 is 8.8, 23 is 8.8, 24, another significant increase at 9.6, 25 is 10, 26 is 10.6, and then this year, if we fund them, if we tried to get to that 18%, which I know they say they need 21,
Right.
but if we split the difference from 16% and we went to a little over 18, that puts them, I mean, that's a $1.2 million increase. So it puts them at $11.9 million of operating income, of operating expense, sorry. So that's what we're giving them. And that gets us to 18.18%. That doesn't include school resource officers, nurse program, or debt service, which I know does not come directly out of their budget, but that is money that is contributed to the school system, which puts it at 23.6% if you added all those.
What percent is that? 11.9 is what percent?
18.18%. So if we were going to go on the idea of just giving them 18%, because they need 21, we can afford to do 18. That's the number you're looking at. They're going to get a pretty significant increase this year. If our budget increased the same next year, you're looking at a $550,000 increase next year.
Right.
If we just maintain that 18%. And I think at that point, they would have to have some conversations because they're not able to fund that $3.6 million or the 4 or 5 or whatever they're asking for. And I don't know where it comes in for us, you know, where do we come into play to say, hey, out of this 1.2, we want you to fund these EC folks, or we want you to fund this or not this,
$500,000, yeah.
but we're giving you a number. Which I would support the 1.2 increase to get them that 18%. I think that needs to be their baseline number.
And to get that 1.2, you're talking about funding our Macon County's capital out of fund balance, which frees up that $1.2 million operating money to give that to school, correct? Is that?
That's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Cable, is that feasible, what we're saying here?
It is. You do have still a significant fund balance. One of the things that we've talked about, which Mitch went over last time, governments do it. You don't want to cover operating monies, which is the conversation we've had prior to this. But in certain circumstances, using your fund balance to leverage your monies, knowing that you'll reconcile some things later on, that's certainly okay. And he does not think that that's going to cause any issue with our bond rating or any other financial issue.
But let's get into that just a little bit, Nick. We always talk about this fund balance and the capital improvement fund. So we transfer and you use the interest income from this to help balance the budget. Okay. So let's just say 30 million. Let's just, okay. So we are at 25% for the undesignated fund balance of coordinates. There's an ordinance for that. So we stick to that 25%. We put the rest of that money in the capital improvement fund. Yes, it is still going to be drawing interest, but that interest on that money is only allowed to be used for capital improvements, correct? If you have it in a capital improvement fund,
We will be putting that interest in that
Yes.
fund, correct?
okay,
Yes,
and
if
that
you-
money can
yes.
only be used for capital improvements. So if we set this undesignated fund balance to 25%, next year, all these people asking, we don't have that fund balance to depend on to give this additional money. So it makes your job and your job a little bit harder to balance the books because you can't tap into that $1.15 million to balance the budget. So it's a double-edged sword here. People look at this undesignated fund balance as, oh, we can ask for this money and they can tap into it, give us the 1.2 million out of the capital fund to give the school system. But if we go back to that designation of 25% and the capital improvement, we don't have that luxury anymore, correct? Because if you're going to retain that at 25%, any additionals that would be added to the undesignated fund balance would be immediately sent into the capital improvement fund.
You're correct. At some point, yes, you would not have the ability to do what you're doing if considering today. You're correct.
Yeah. And so I think moving forward, I think we're playing on a dangerous road here because of the things that this county needs. And folks being able to know that they can come to our board and we can tap into that fund balance is a dangerous pattern. And somewhere along the line, we have to make hard decisions. Do I support a lot of this? Absolutely. But we only have so much money. And we don't want, we depend on that interest to be able to balance the budget and keep working on this stuff. And eventually, it's not there. So I think that's I see exactly what you're talking about, Commissioner, but
Let's see,
it's hard.
there's a little story here that I'm leaving out. Eric knows what I'm going to talk about, but Derek Rowland and I had the opportunity, I'll say that, to meet with the ACLU, right, Eric, that was last year, or when Derek was here, and the and when we were talking about Franklin High School, you may have initiated that meeting with ACLU. Derek and I went over to the central office and we Zoomed with them. And the story is, when we got through there, Derek and I decided we'd just keep our mouth shut because they'd already had been alerted about Franklin High School and the deficiencies that we had there, and that we were going to have to pay attention to the exceptional children piece. And I'll never forget the lady saying, when you, and she said, when you go in front of the judge, because we were telling the lady, we don't have the money to build a new high school. Then that lady said, when you go in front of the judge, make sure you tell them that Macon County has the lowest tax payment in the state. And she just laughed. And Derek and I said, oh, Lord, we're in trouble. Because at that time, she was saying, no, you'll increase your taxes in order to take care of these young people. That's one of the things. And just so happened, the $62 million came in a few weeks later. And prayer answered. And we didn't have to go through going to court and stuff like that. But we were on the verge of having to stand up and do something because we were being challenged at that time that we were not providing for the exceptional children. And to be honest about it, we weren't, not at the old high school. So there's issues here, and I think that still goes back to the young people and the families of exceptional children. They are supported by the law. And I think we have to find a way to acclimate to that in order for them to get what the law says they're inquired to have, or we were required to give them. And I just shared that with you, that just, sometimes it gets bigger than you are. And the ACLs, the union, when they become involved, they are bigger than some of us, because they got the political power, judicial power that they can use. But I don't want to go into that arena again over this piece of information that we're leaving out of the budget, or finding some way to put it back in the budget where we won't be challenged again like we were.
Just trying to play mediator here. Ms. Leopard, how hard would it be to set up an account and to use some of the 1.2 million proposed fund from Commissioner Breeden to fund the 500
So
plus
we,
thousand?
I mean, I feel like we can set up accounts just how we have current expense. We can designate that. But this is all I want to point out, just by I can't speak for the school system. But their maintain request is already more than what you're funding them if you give them the 1.2. So
Yeah.
for their maintain, they're asking for what, 14.2?
14.
Almost
yeah.
14.3 million. What you're trying to come up and fund now is on their top priorities, which is in addition to their maintain. So they're going to have to make hard choices, and I think that needs to be clear to them of, we're already not funding you your maintain, and I think for good reason. I think there's some issues there that we needed answers to, right? But now you're earmarking 600,000 of that in addition to say, this is on your top priority list. So you're really, they're going to have to really look at this maintain list and see of that.
Yes.
Good answer.
But nothing says that we can't fund them that. Now when we give them that money, that's not, we just cut them a check every month. If that's outlined, this part's for EC.
So could we go a little farther on that and pull whatever EC money they're using now inside of that operational budget out? So if, right now we're talking about funding $600,000
Right.
to fund on their top priorities. Well, what if we pulled out what we're already funding in EC and say it's $1 million? But the operations number would go down a little bit, but then, it's kind of like
True,
how
EC
Jackson
cost.
County's doing it, where we're actually seeing.
I mean, we would need to
the
get that from
Public is seeing
them.
what we're
I
spending.
don't know, just from conversations I've had with Laney, they kind of play like a shuffling game of trying to maximize local dollars. So just because a position is on local funding right now doesn't mean at the end of the year that same position is on local funding. So I know that they do move positions around to be able to draw down that state money and federal money. I don't know what that looks like EC-wise. I don't know if there is pots of money she's already pulling down for federal and state funding. So I don't know how easy that would be, how much local dollars are truly spent on EC. I mean, it looks like to me this is an addition to what funding they're already getting. But if we don't have a good breakdown, because it's always moving around, I don't know how we would break that out.
And back to Commissioner Shields, I mean, you have an elected school board that is responsible to make sure that they're upholding the laws, right?
Right.
Okay, so for us to try to dictate the law to them, well, the people elected them to run the school system and uphold all laws, all inclusive to all children. And to Lindsay's point is, they have to make tough decisions. Do we obey the law, or do we fund positions? And in 1 year, almost 8 positions. Well, next year, 15 positions. I mean, it just, and so somewhere along the line, in my opinion, all government entities is gonna have to go back. We're gonna have a reset and go back to the basics of the task at hand. I mean, it's just,
Well, I think that's why we had initially started out with that percentage.
Right.
Because it's just a percentage, here it is.
Right, yeah.
And you guys are elected to spend it and,
yeah, oh, yeah.
but as our budget grows or
Right.
doesn't, so does theirs.
Yeah, and then if ours decreases,
Right.
then so does theirs.
And I think it's a view thing. I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm
No, go
sorry.
ahead.
But like for us, I feel like every one of us have reviewed this budget a lot. And I feel like in our minds, those are maintained numbers, So I don't know. like those should be funded. So to me, that should have been part of a maintain request. So that was what
Yes.
was really hard for me to wrap my head around, is like, why are they over here on this top priority list? When you absolutely need to be funding these positions. So that would also give them some time, hopefully with their board, to really work on these priorities of like, EC should be top of the list, true? I mean, that's what we feel like
Right.
by reviewing it. And so maybe this number could shift some, hopefully. And I mean, worst case scenario, they're gonna have to come back to you and explain, we're still not where we need to be.
Can you give me the difference between 18% and the .18, what that would be dollar-wise?
Just straight 18%.
Yeah.
23.5% of our budget.
Overall, yeah.
Overall, it's
23.17.
What I'm getting at is if that
cost of school.
0.18%, if we just hit an even 18 and we could use that other part to fund that ambulance. I don't know if it's enough, but might be close.
And I guess that's what I was trying to do, is to get them to refocus on the capital and current expense. And for me to feel like it was their decision to do these type things, not us, that we could just support them and not be the,
Well, I don't think you're wrong. I mean, I think it's our responsibility to have those conversations with them.
yes, I think you're right.
I mean it.
What Mr. Ridenour passed out to us over the weekend, it's definitely a process that you go through with. And it talks about down here funding disputes with the local school board. And there's a procedure for this. And I think you're correct, and I'm with you, is that they should have the first opportunity.
I agree with that.
So at just a flat 18%, not the 18.18, your total operating expenditures that you would be funding them would be $11,814,471. That would save you over the 18.18. That's $116,156.
Not quite enough to do an ambulance, but close, huh?
How much is the ambulance? 300.
168? It was like 168 or something.
Right around 170 mark for a remount.
The full ambulance cost was $256,681.
Oh, I thought we were doing a remount.
The remount, though, I think it was a little less. I have it
The
here.
remount was. The ambulance is what-
I'm going on record as 168. All right, well.
Thank you for the opportunity to share that with you.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we approve an increase to the school system, making their budgeted money 18% of our budget, which is an increase of,
1 point.
yeah, whatever that number is, Lindsay.
I'll
You didn't tell
second
me
that
that number.
motion. I'll second that motion.
I have a motion by Commissioner Breeden. Did you finish your motion? You good with
Well, I guess, do I need to say that that's, no, yep,
that?
that's my motion.
And second by
Second.
Commissioner Shields. Any further discussion? Do we need to clarify where the funds are coming out of our fund balance? Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we need to say that you are going to be, the motion contains that you are using an appropriation of 1.259058 from fund balance, with 18% of that going to the Macon County Schools operating expenses. But you're going to have a remainder of 116,156. So what would you like that to be? Do you want that to be,
It was,
Okay.
retract your motion,
Yeah, I'd like to retract my motion. I'll start over.
for the record. All right.
What do we want that money to be used for? That 116?
Well, I'd say let's reallocate here in a minute.
Can that go into contingency?
you can, sure.
you have a current
Do that.
contingency of 96,995, so you could add that to contingency.
And that was 116,150?
116,156. $116,156.
Glad you're making that motion.
I'll give it a shot.
Hey,
see
I'll
what
give it a
happens.
second.
All right, so I'd like to make a motion that we allocate 1.25, or 1,259,058
From general.
from general fund
Balance.
balance, and 18% goes to the Macon County School System. The remainder of $116,156 goes to contingency.
All right, here a motion by Commissioner Breeden.
I'll second that. I didn't get it all down, but I'll second it. I trust
Second by
it.
Commissioner Shields.
Yep.
Any further discussion?
Okay, so that takes away the funding for capital outlay for the county, is that?
All county capital will be funded from general fund balance.
You would essentially be funding all of the school capital and all of the county capital requests this year from, well, yes, from fund balance.
What say you, manager?
I'm a little cautious using the fund balance. However, I will tell you, you make a very valid point on interest on investments. The thing is, we won't allocate all of that capital at once, so therefore it doesn't go away July 1st. So we'll continue to make interest on it 6 months, 7 months into the year. Our projection is our net interest on investments are projected to stay basically in the same range that we had last year, and we were very conservative on our calculations on those this year in your budget.
But we still did increase. I just want that to be clear.
We did
weren't
still
as
increase.
conservative, just because we needed funds, so we did increase.
So for a one-time thing, I don't have an issue with it. However, at some point, your growth in revenues, your interest on investments, your revenues coming in, you're going to need some more funds somewhere to maintain your own budget across the board, which that can look like your normal growth, that can look like your quarter-cent sales tax, that could look like a property tax increase eventually somewhere. So we just need to plug those numbers in. We'll revise capital improvement plan. We'll track that out over the next 10 years, and we will put that into the formula and just be wary of that.
And him and I had a lot of conversation about using fund balance, because it's obviously not something you want to do for what we're doing. But you are trending well this year. Sales tax is better than it was last year.
Good.
And your interest is good. So we should end, so even though you're appropriating some fund balance, you should end well this year too.
And if the need is there, if you truly identify the need that you want to spend that money on, at the moment, your only other option is a tax increase. And you make a very valid point that it's a struggle for some folks. So at the moment, if you want to maintain those needs that you see, that is your best option without doing a property tax increase.
But we're still working towards that 1/4 of a penny sales tax. That could be a contribution to the total budget too, right?
That's correct.
That's a lot of emphasis on that $0.25.
Yes.
Minus 1
It's
year.
$2 million.
So are we actually with this ask? We're below what they're asking for maintain.
Correct.
So the additional positions, they're gonna have to figure out. Okay.
Well, I did the quick math, which I don't have mine right here in front of me, but that from your raises down to your local supplement, you're about $505,000 of that money right there.
Yeah.
You're going to have to make some
Yeah.
decisions on that,
Yeah.
on what's spent with the rest of it.
Yeah, raises to supplements is $550,155.
All right, we have
Okay.
a motion by Commissioner Breeden, second by Commissioner Sherrill. Any further discussion?
Commissioner Shields, thank you, sir.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Shields. Just trying to give,
Don't give
Cheryl some
John
credit
hot
there.
water.
all right. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, please raise your right arm, state aye for the record. Aye. Any opposed? All right, Ms. Tammy,
Yeah,
please let the
save
record
me
reflect
the
the
next
5-0
time.
vote. All right, since you brought up the ambulance, does anybody have any thoughts on funding or remaining an ambulance that was cut out of our budget?
We can,
Originally.
with your money in contingency, you've already budgeted, one of them's included in the capital money. With that extra contingency, we can revisit that, and then if we need to approach that after July 1st, we can certainly do that if you don't want to make that decision today, so. Because the money, you moved it into contingency, so we can use it for whatever needs you have. So.
We should have roughly, 215 in there, something like that?
For timing purposes, do we need to make that decision right now, Mr. Gabe?
No, I don't think so. No, I think we're
We're
good.
just going to set aside and wait on you for that.
That's correct.
All right? Now, I've got a list of items right here. Is there anything else anybody wants to add or remove from this budget? Our finance and county manager are looking for direction. Southwestern,
I think that Southwestern, I think we hold them flat on their operation, 510, some change. We're gonna give them the 125 for, like we've been doing for capital, and then do the driving tracker all in.
We didn't put the 125 in for any of the capital, and matter of fact, we didn't put anything in for capital. So if you want to appropriate the money for the driving track now, you have a couple options. You can do it now. We'll pull it out of fund balance, adjust the bottom rate of the budget up, and it'll reflect the money for the track. Or if you want them to come back in July, they can come back, and then we'll adjust the budget then. The estimate we got was $574,600 for paving the driving track. That's less than the $800,000 that they came in last year and they proposed for us, so, and it's included in the capital improvement plan under that $2.5 million. It doesn't matter to me if you want to do it now or if you want to wait till July. One of the things we discussed, 5% contingency on top of that's about 28,000. So if you wanted to round it up, even number 600,000, that would give you the money for the paving and the contingency.
How many bids?
They had 3 bids. They range anywhere from 574.6 to 782.551. Now, that's actually a community college project. It's not us doing the bidding, so it would be a funds transfer to them.
Does it say how long they're good for?
Doesn't have a date on it as far as how long it's good for. But they did say that they could start within basically a couple of weeks of us, if you so desire to appropriate the money. So if you appropriated it in the budget, you passed the budget in June, first day of July, the money's available, I think they could start very quickly. Or if you want to wait till July, it's probably going to push them into August until they started paving somewhere.
Question is how soon are they going to implement this program at SCC once it's paved? Because do they have plans to do it in the fall?
Yes, it's November, it's either October or November is the scheduled class, yeah.
They'll be ready by then.
Yes. Yeah, they had checked, and within 2 weeks of them notifying this company that they would be able to start.
If we're going to do it, I don't see the point in waiting,
I'll
other than the
make-
bottom line of the budget.
Financially, it makes no difference to you. It's the same money for us no matter
I
what.
make the motion, we continue with that and ASAP.
So does your motion include the bid money was 574,600. Do you want to include a contingency to round it up to 600?
600,000, yes.
And the funds coming from,
Fund balance.
And paving, and what was the other word?
Just the paving and contingency.
Is there something else that goes with the paving? We're doing something.
resurfacing.
Resurfacing. Paving and resurfacing. Is resurfacing in there, or is that
Yes.
resurfacing?
Yes.
Yes.
I wonder if they're gonna fill all those cracks and stuff. Is that in the bid package?
I got a motion by Commissioner Shields, and the funds come out of
Fund balance.
fund balance.
Oh, I thought you seconded it.
Nope, I've got a motion by Commissioner Shields, second by Commissioner Breeden. All right, sorry about that.
So it was actually the tack work, the binder, the asphalt, the yardage calculation. I'm assuming they will do the cracks, but like I said, that bid's on Southwestern. We didn't do the bid on this one, so I'd have to.
So they're proposing, he said 2 lifts, 1.5 inches. So what you're saying now is probably 2 inches of binder and
2-inch binder and 1-inch
1 inch
asphalt
of-
topper is what
1
this
inch
bid
of,
was.
uh,
Yes.
Better.
surface.
Yes.
All right.
And I'll also say there are other capital needs, the $125,000 we did last year, like the roof, they mentioned at the PSTC building, we can have them come back to us and we'll do those one by one during the year, whenever things come up with that.
I
Sounds good.
Any other discussion?
that's a little concerning knowing that you're gonna have tractor and trailers out there all the time on that surface and actually if that's strong enough, but anyways,
But they are empty.
Yeah.
All right, all in favor, please raise your right arm, state aye for the record. Aye. Any opposed? All right, Ms. Tammy, please let the record reflect unanimous vote. All right. SEC. Anybody else have anything they want to add, remove, or change with this budget year? Yeah, I mean, Killisage is on here, Hudson Library's on here. Does anybody have any interest in adjusting mill rate for Killisage? Funds for Highlands Library? I think we just pinched the schools so hard, it's hard to go up there and rehab a library. It's not ours. My personal opinion. All right.
I mean, if you're asking if we
all right.
have any interest in it.
Ms. Leopard, Mr. Cave, anything else you need from us?
I think unless you have anything else, I think we've got.
Is there a need to have another discussion, another budget work session?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Moving pretty fast. I hear a motion by Commissioner Shields, second by Commissioner Breeden.
Well, we gotta go to the bathroom.
All right, all in favor, please raise your right arm, state aye for the record. Aye.
Lord, don't do that.
We're out of here.
Those are they send us 2 things every year.
That was good, thank you.
That's the easiest thing for them to vote over. That's just their cost of it.